What's up, desktoppers? Xavier Wills here with Michael Galley, and we're here for another weekly bodybuilding breakdown. In this edition, we are doing a Q&A once again. You guys liked the first one, so we've got a bunch of questions for you guys. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. So if you guys like this content, please give this video a thumbs up and smash that like button. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, and you won't miss out on another weekly bodybuilding breakdown. Anyway, guys, on with the video, and I hope you enjoy it. What's up, desktoppers? I'm Xavier Wills, and I'm here with Michael Galley once again for the weekly bodybuilding breakdown. Mick, we have a bunch of questions, and let's launch straight into it because people are liking these Q&As. So I put it out on Facebook, also put it on the YouTube community tab. I might even in the future put up a post on the Desktop Bodybuilding Instagram page too. So make sure you guys jump on that and like that and follow it so you guys can keep up to date with what's going on with Desktop Bodybuilding and obviously the weekly bodybuilding breakdown. So let's get into it, Mick. First question is from Suresh Gunn. It says, at 45 years of age, will Shawn Rhoden ever compete again, or will the 2018 O be his final show? Michael, what do you think?
I'm going to leave that with you.
Yeah, well, pretty much there's a little bit of news that's sort of popping on that at the moment, and I'm going to be doing a video literally pretty much straight after this video on Shawn Rhoden doing the potentially doing the 2020 Mr Olympia, because there's a bit of news around that you've brought to my attention, and we're going to discuss that more on the next weekly bodybuilding breakdown as well. We're going to go in depth on that, but that's going to be out very, very soon after this video. And honestly, I don't think he's done his last show, because Shawn Rhoden's staying big, and he's continuously staying big, and he's just staying ready to compete again. Like, I think we'll see him again on stage.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see him back on stage. Absolutely.
Yeah, and with a little bit of news we heard too, I very much think he may be on stage again, hopefully this year. Next question from Craig Winter. He said, thoughts on the new Olympia Dream Team with Jake Wood and Dan Solomon at the helm? And he said, also, what about the prospects of a return of the Miss Olympia women's bodybuilding division and the potential scenario of legendary Iris Kyle coming back for effectively her 11th consecutive title? Keep up the great work, Xavier and Michael. So that's from Craig Winter. Great question. So first of all, I'll just quickly say on the Olympia Dream Team with Jake Wood and Dan Solomon, I think it's awesome because we're seeing a lot of really great stuff come out from them, you know, with the new venue, the new date, the way they've moved on the Olympia has pretty much been perfect so far. They had a great first year, even though, you know, they had a lot of hurdles to jump over with the whole Shawn Rhoden thing, with Phil Heath not competing, with a bunch of other issues and trying to get Hardy in the Olympia. It was like, they were faced with a lot of hurdles straight up, and they're faced with even more this year, and they're handling it perfectly. So I think they're doing great with that. Mick, what's your thoughts?
Oh, mate, I think Dan did a tremendous job last year, and now Jake's come on board as well. New venue, new date, end of December, like we said the other episode. I think that's a fantastic idea. The women's bodybuilding is back, so that is in this year's lineup. I haven't heard if Iris is competing or not, but I hope she does. It'd be fantastic to see her back up there. 10-time Miss Olympia going for a number 11.
Yeah, well, she said she will only come back if the Olympia, they actually get the Olympia name back with women's bodybuilding, and they've done that. And I think she stayed in really good shape as well, even when she hasn't been competing. So I think we will see her on stage this year. I think you're going to see Iris Kyle. You're going to see probably Alina Popa. You might see... I think is her name Heli Trevino, or I'm getting confused between a few of the girls, but there's going to be a lot of girls that are going to be competing, but are going to be really, really good. So I can't wait to actually see that this year. Next question, Ali Raza says, considering some experts' predictions on travel, which won't resume until next year, what's your prediction with this year's Olympia numbers and competitors? Also, Ali is a men's physique pro as well, and I can't wait to see him make his debut because he actually missed out on that at the Arnold Classic Australia this year, where he's going to make his pro debut. So what do you think, Mick? What do you think about the experts predicting and how the Olympia numbers will be?
I'm being positive. I think the restrictions are going to be off before the Olympia. I really do. I think international restrictions will come off, and I think this Olympia is going to be one of the best ever. Definitely one of the best lineups ever. If they're not, well, I'm still going because I live in Texas, so I'm just going to fly straight over. I still think it's going to be a well-attended Olympia because a lot of people aren't going to want to miss out on this new venue, especially with who's possibly in the lineup. It's something I think a lot of people are going to see. Hopefully Shawn's back, Flex Lewis is in, hopefully Phil's back, Brandon's coming back. I still think it's going to be a cracker of an Olympia.
Yeah, I mean, here in Australia, they said, like Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, came out and said, don't expect to travel internationally until, it said, either late this year or next year. So really that sort of says around the New Year's we might be able to travel, but the thing is I think they might allow travel prior to Christmas. We might sort of see travel open up then because that would be sort of a time to open it up so people can go see their extended families that live elsewhere in Australia at least and obviously internationally as well. So hopefully I'm praying that does happen because that would be sensational if it did. But depends. I think it depends a lot how America goes as well, and it might only be open to certain countries. So I'm really hoping that happens. There might even be exemptions for competitors and stuff, but I doubt they're going to make exemptions for people that just want to travel and watch the Olympia. But praying that it is open because I'll be there and I'll be able to catch up with you, mate. So that'd be good.
Absolutely.
All right, next question. Matthew Pye, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Sorry if I messed that up, Matt. It says, any word when the Queensland IFB Pro League show will be on? It's still marked as to be announced on their website. We have no idea on that, do we?
We don't. I know it's set for October, but who knows? Now that the Olympia's been moved to December, who knows? They still could possibly move it closer to the Olympia as well, which would be fantastic. I hope they do that because then that gives everyone a chance if restrictions are off to compete, then fly over and enjoy the Olympia, which would be great.
I think there's almost no doubt. I don't want to say no doubt, but it seems like these shows are going to go on like at some stage in 2020. The way things are going in Australia and how much better it's looking, it just seems like it's going to happen. I mean, we've got rugby league starting up within 2 weeks. We've got AFL starting up within 4 weeks. If they can start that soon, October's still a decent way away. You know, people haven't even started their prep yet. So I think that's very likely will probably be sometime in October. Kurt James, who's a great supporter of the Desktop Bodybuilding and this show, he says, give a shout out to 3 gyms you've absolutely loved where your training has always been tops. So Mick, I'll let you go first on that one.
Well, I'll say 2 of mine and then you can say 2 of yours. And I'm pretty sure we've got one very similar for our third one. But 2 of my favourite gyms, and there's been a lot. This was a hard one. I did live in Thailand for about a year and a half on the island of Koh Samui, and I had a shop selling supplements, which was legal over there.
Supplements and
next
supplements?
To a gym. Yes, and supplements, which is next to a gym called Elite. I'm just going to say Elite Fitness because I can't remember the full name. I loved it. It was a brilliantly well-equipped gym, but everyone from around the world would come there for holidays and train. It was fantastic. So you got to meet a lot of different people there as well. World Gym, I'm going to put these 2 together because it's the same. World Gym Surface, which I worked at, and also World Gym Ashmore, which is only about 15-minute drive apart. But they were 2 gyms that I spent a lot of time training in my hometown of the Gold Coast. So a lot of fun memories there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, my 3 gyms are all gyms that, well, 2 of them are Doherty's gyms because, you know, I've sort of trained there probably more than even the Perth Doherty's gym. So I'm going to say Doherty's gym in Brunswick because that's just like the original and the old school. And I haven't trained at that many places really around the world. Like, I was sort of thinking about this and I'm like, yeah, I've trained at a few places. And I'm like, no, I've more just actually looked at them online, like Gold's Gym in Venice and Bev and Steve's Powerhouse Gym. I haven't actually trained at any of those gyms. So I'm going to say Doherty's Gym Brunswick. Doherty's Gym Dandenong. I actually think that's super underrated. Have you trained there, Mick?
Yeah, no, I haven't. But I went in there once with, it was work related a couple of years ago. Yeah, very nice, well-equipped gym.
I've been put through my hardest workout of my life there. I got put through a leg workout by Lucky Hat Spentelis, who has probably the best or some of the best legs in Australia. And man, he murdered me. He was literally, I was in the, you know the sissy squat, the one you stand in that locks your legs in? Is it sissy squat or support squat where you got the little pad? Yeah. I was in that, and this is how bad my legs were after, this was the end of a workout. I was collapsing in that. So my body, just body weight, I was collapsing and he was ripping me up and then just going, come on. And I would control it down and then he just ripped me up and I'd fall down again. And man, my legs, I couldn't believe how long they were sore for. It was insane. So yeah, Doty's gym in Dandenong, and then Archer's gym on the Gold Coast, which is in one of yours, I believe, as well. And that was an old school gym, and it actually burnt down, I think, the year after I went there. And I went there when I was about 14 years old with my dad. Last family holiday, I went on to the Gold Coast, and it was just an old school, smaller gym. And you've got some stories and stuff from there that you've told me before the show as well. And it was just a super cool gym.
Yeah, the memories from that gym. I think when I first come to the Gold Coast, which was '93, so I went. There wasn't many gyms to choose from, so I trained at a few different ones. But Archer's was the most memorable one. Old school. A lot of pros had been through that gym. Arnold trained there. Lee Haney had trained there. Frank Zane had trained there. All these guys, all their photos up on the wall. And all the top guys in Australia at that time on that Gold Coast. John Davey, Brian Anthony, Lee Newman. So it was a brilliant gym as a kid to start training at and go through those ranks. I loved it. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Adam John Waite, who's a classic physique pro here in Australia, he says, do you think the side tricep pose will be a new mandatory pose? Now, he's obviously talking about in the classic physique class, and it is insane that the side tricep pose actually isn't a mandatory pose, because I think that pose is actually a lot more classic looking than a lot of the other ones, especially when people do their little tweaks on it. They might do it slightly to the front and stuff like you see with Shawn Rhoden doing. I think it should be. I have no idea if it will be included. What do you think, Mick?
I agree. I thought it should have been one of the first ones in there for sure. Yeah. I would even go as far as to say that when they do it, you're right, it should be how Shawn Rhoden does it, tilted slightly to the side with the leg out.
Yeah.
That should be how the pose is done, because that shows you exactly how symmetrical the physique is. But I hope they bring it in, man, because it is. It's a classic pose, especially done like that.
Yeah, for sure. Next question, Julian Tuffrey. He says, why carve such a neglected body part in modern bodybuilding? This makes or breaks a good set of legs on a bodybuilder. So I think calves are one of those things where if you're looking at a whole physique, a lot of the time judges are looking up. So sometimes you even have the feet and a little bit of the ankles and stuff cut off on a bodybuilder sometimes, depending where the judges are sitting and how the stage is situated. But a lot of the time, I think it's just not something that your eyes are particularly drawn to. I think it does make the legs, if your quads are slightly weaker and you do have a good set of calves, I think it sort of balances it out a bit and improves the look. And without even looking directly at the calves, you do see, I suppose, the physique as being a bit more proportionate. But yeah, they are not looked at as much as I think the rest of the physique, because you see guys like obviously Dexter Jackson, who won a Mr Olympia with, very subpar calves compared to a lot of the other guys. So I think they're judged slightly, but not a huge amount. I think from the side, they're more judged than anything. If you've got that detail and stuff, it makes the physique look a bit more, I suppose, impressive or a bit harder overall. But what's your thoughts on calves and bodybuilding in the pros?
It's definitely changed over the years. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you look at a lot of the guys in the sort of 70s, 80s, early 90s, I guess, that it was always the delts, the tiny waist, and the calves. That was what everyone kept referring to as what a silhouette will look on stage. And I always think, I always hear John Torelli commenting on a lot about calves and how they're just not that focused of a muscle group. And they're not these days. You don't really see people talking about them as much or going into detail about them. I think it's just something that's just changed over a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question on Facebook, we've got a few on YouTube we'll quickly get to. Brad Allen asked, should posing be scored? In my opinion, the posing routine should absolutely be scored. And I think it should be scored on a system that the fans actually know about, because it's scored at the Arnold Classic, but no one really knows how it's scored, because a lot of the time the guy that wins will win the posing round as well. Now, I think it should be scored. It should be pretty clear to the fans about how it's being scored. So I think 75% should be on physique, like at least in your mind thinking, okay, 75% is how the physique's presented, and then maybe, or 25% is how they actually put together the routine, whether it's the flow, and if it is sort of more of a pop locking routine, as long as they're hitting their pose and actually being entertaining, I think that should account for maybe 20% of the actual posing routine that's scored or something. So, if you see a Melvin Anthony who you might place, just say back in the day, places fourth in a show, I think maybe that could maybe push him up a spot in terms of just the posing round, or push him up 2 spots or something like that, because if his physique's very close to a few other guys, I think that his posing should put him over the top of maybe 2 other competitors if they're quite close. What's your thoughts on posing being scored, and do you think it should be mixed?
I think it should be. Yeah, definitely. I quite enjoyed it when it was. It made guys put a little bit more effort, a lot more effort into it as well. If you look at a lot of the routines back in the day of Lee Labrada, Barry DeMay, Rich Gaspari as well, Sean Ray, all those sort of guys, they were fantastic routines. It kind of made the comp a lot more interesting to watch as well. Whereas these days, I'm not saying they all do it, but maybe half of them they just don't put the effort in. So I'm all for it. Bring back the scoring of the posing.
Absolutely. Now we're heading to YouTube, to the community tab. Mike Newman says, how do you know if you have good enough genetics to compete, Mick?
Well, I don't know. You should have a fairly good idea after a year or so. And obviously, you need a trusted eye from someone as well. So if you can get someone to give you some honest feedback about what your weak points might be or things like that as well. But generally, it's good just to jump into a show. Like I was lucky, I was pretty young when I did my first one, but jump into a show, get some feedback from there as well, and move on from there.
That's the advice I give to everyone, because I competed, it was 5 days after I had my 17th birthday. So I only just turned 17. I only just was able to get my license 5 days before my birthday, and before my comp. And like, I jumped into that show. I ended up winning it out of 5 guys, but we were all pretty small in a teenage division, you know what I mean? No one was massively big or anything like that. But jumping into that show, I learned about how to actually, when you diet, you can really control you control how much body fat you have on your body. You control how you're feeling with your diet. So I learned a lot about nutrition and just dieting and how my body responds. And I felt like after that comp, I had a real hold on my physique. And I didn't know when I dieted down that I would 100% get comp lean or anything like that. So I actually found it as a really good learning experience. And I found that I love bodybuilding. And regardless of if, as long as I could be okay genetically, you know what I mean, and look okay on stage, I was going to continue to compete because I absolutely loved it. So I say jump in a show. Maybe at least set yourself at least a year or something to train, or if you've got really good genetics, if you do have a decent amount of size, you could even probably do it in 6 to 9 months of training if you're good enough and you want to enter at a novice level, or if you're younger at a teenage or a junior level. So I say jump in a show, see how you do, see how you look, learn a lot from it. About how you look on stage, about your tan when you compete and all that sort of stuff. Because if you wait for ages and jump in a show once you've added a ton of muscle, there's going to be little mistakes you make pretty much inevitably. So if you find yourself a good coach and all that sort of stuff, or a good eye to let you know what you need to work on, then pretty much go from there. Next question, Charla1 says, hi X and Mike. I think she means Mick, but we'll give her a pass.
I get Mike all the time.
Do you think future Mr. Olympia should go down the route of permanently being drug-free and compulsory testing athletes and competitors? Would natural shows appear on TV one day? Do you think the wider public and mainstream media would be more supportive of bodybuilders and bodybuilding if the industry got rid of PEDs once and for all? I'll let you tackle that one first.
I just it's not going to happen. I just think we're at the point now where it's not a mainstream sport, and it never will be. I don't think any of us want it to be. But back in the 80s and early 90s too, it was shown on Wild Water Sports a bit. They used to have clips of certain bodybuilding shows like the USA's and the NPC Nationals. So it did have its time on TV, but things have changed over the years too. I think it's got to the point where the guys are that big and freaky that it's probably something that you're not going to get the views on a mainstream TV. But I can't see. I just can't see the sport ever being drug-free at that level. I just don't think it'll get the same attendance.
I totally agree in terms of the testing and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's been tried. Like, we've seen it tried in the 90s. We've seen it tried, I think, in the early 2000s with the diuretic testing. We've seen a whole lot of attempts at doing this. Now, if it was going to be ever to be in the Olympics, yeah, you'd have to have testing. It just is what it is. I don't know if anyone will ever push as hard as the Weeders did to actually let it go down that route. So I don't think it will happen again. Maybe another federation might try to push for the Olympics. I'm not too sure. But I think in terms of appearing on TV, it can happen because it's happened in the past. We used to see it on TV. But we might see something like Classic Physique on TV, because we see a lot of the time the Classic Physique guys put more effort into their posing routines because they want to pose classic, So you see like guys like Terence Ruffin. I mean, that's entertaining. If you watch one of those posing routines, I think even someone in the general public that's sort of into training or just goes to the gym, doesn't know a huge amount about, I suppose, competitive bodybuilding, they could watch that and go, oh, look at this dude's physique, and really appreciate it and really appreciate the way he moves, and they might go, that's really cool. But seeing just freaky bodybuilders, like, one, you're going to get pushback from the public saying, oh, these guys are all on blah, blah, blah. And you still get that in the classic physique, but it's less, I suppose, obvious. So maybe we might see something like that. Maybe a men's physique, but I highly doubt it. But even seeing the women's fitness and stuff, that's entertaining. So I think stuff like that can be pushed onto TV and people would be able to enjoy it, and actually judging the posing routines and really putting a big emphasis on it. I think that is a way we could see it appear on TV and maybe get more attention from the wider general public. But we've seen with all the new classes now, we've seen, and obviously social media too, we've seen it become more mainstream, and we see how many followers now Kai Green and all these top pro bodybuilders have on Instagram. They've got millions. So we know there's not millions of competitors around the world. It's more like, hundreds of thousands. So we know there's obviously some mainstream guys. Like even my mates I went to school with, a few of them follow like Jay Cutler and Kai Green and Phil Heath on social media, but they're not bodybuilders. They just like to go to the gym and train a bit, So it is more mainstream, but I just don't know if we'll ever get the testing. So next question is from Kevin Wheatley. He says, with this year being such a sad year for bodybuilding, we now have Luke Sando and Josh Lenardowitz obviously out of the Olympia. It's going to be a quiet year boys. Do you think Phil Heath will come back and equal 8 Mr Olympias? Now, we talked about this earlier. I actually think it could be a good year in terms of like a competitor list in bodybuilding, because we've got, Flex Lewis and these other potential comebacks in the open class. Then obviously, like you said, Luke Sando being out of there, he's a real up-and-comer, and that's very unfortunate. And Josh Lenardowitz, it seems very unlikely he'd compete this year, with potentially him being retired as well. I think it will actually be a fine Mr Olympia, and I think Phil Heath definitely could come back and tie 8 Mr Olympias, but it's just a massive unknown at the moment. With the likelihood of Shawn coming back too, Phil might go, it's actually going to be a good lineup. I'm not sure about competing. He might just go, nah, he might not do it. But I'm 50-50 on Phil. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same. But I still think this year's going to be great. Yeah. Like you said, Flex, Brandon Curry coming back, trying to get his second Olympia. Shawn, hey, he could be a goer, like we just said. Phil, I really think this year's going to be great. I can't wait.
I agree. And last question before we wrap this thing up. Andrew the Wanderer says, hey, how are you all feeling after what's been happening lately? Then he puts in brackets, not just Luke Sando's passing. He said, I'm reaching out to you both to be of support and sending you and your families warm, loving vibes. So super nice there from Andrew. So how are you feeling about what's been happening lately, Mick?
Well, it's different. I mean, none of us have gone through this sort of thing before. But yeah, no, it's good. It is what it is. Gym's open tomorrow. I'm pretty damn excited about that. I just thank God for things like social media, because me being over here in Texas, I don't really know anyone here, but I get to talk to you still. I get to talk to my mates. I get to see what everyone's doing. So that's actually really, really cool. So I do, one of the first times I've really liked social media. Yeah,
it's funny. And I think even seeing people do more positive things. Like the other day I went for a walk down at the coast, like where I used to sort of normally go quite a lot, which is about 15 minutes from me. I'd go down towards my favourite cafe and I'd go for coast walks up and down there, where it just is like beautiful scenery. And I went down there and man, it was packed. Like there is so many people walking the coast. Like it was insane. And this was on Friday, so a weekday. So quite a few people are still off work and whatnot as well. But it was the middle of the day on Friday and it was good weather, and it was just like, everyone just seemed happy to be out, you know what I mean? And there's sort of people really positive about exercising and whatnot. I mean, if I was on a bike down there, riding up and down there, I'd be annoyed because there's just so many people just packed along the coast walk area. But yeah, man, it was just really good vibes. I went out with a family yesterday, or minus the 2 older kids, with Tara and Kylo, and we went down to this orchard. And we, everyone's in good moods. It was pretty packed down there, and we had to do the whole social distancing sort of thing. But it was just everyone just seems like they're in much better moods now that people are actually able to get out of the house and do a bit more social things and go out in bigger groups of 2 people and stuff. I mean, we can have groups of 10 in public now and things like that. So yeah, it's just real cool, man. I think there are positives to come out of it. Obviously there's people that are dying from it. So I don't want to say, hey, it's awesome. There's good positives from it, but it seems like people are going to hopefully be more appreciative of actually, I suppose, social events and social things they can do and not just take it for granted. So I think there are positives to come out of what has happened. But obviously there has been sad things that have happened. People are struggling financially. People are struggling with mental illness and things like that. So I don't want to just, I suppose just glance over that, but there are positives as well. And I'm tending to try to focus more on that more than the negative at the moment.
Exactly.
But Mick, we decided to make this about 12 minutes. We made it about 25. So I think we'll wrap this up here. But I've loved doing it, man. I've loved actually doing this one. Yeah. Actually, it's been a bit less than 25. So anyway, if you guys have questions for our next one, make sure you keep an eye out for when we put up all the questions and whatnot. Also, you can put them below in the comments of this video, and we'll ask them on the next weekly bodybuilding breakdown where we do another Q&A. So, Mick, do you have any final words for this episode?
I don't. No, it's been good again. I appreciate the list of questions. There are always some good ones, actually.
Yeah,
They're
no, I really liked it, man. So, really liked it. Yeah, and with these sorts of Q&As, I'm not going to be putting out much in terms of photos going up over the video and stuff, because otherwise it will take too long and I'll be getting less content out to you guys. I'm just going to put up photos over the gym stuff, which you guys would have already seen by now. And if it's actually essential to sort of see what a bodybuilder looks like or whatever. So that's it for another episode. If you guys want 10% off Hostile, which are a great supporter and sponsor of Desktop Bodybuilding, make sure you use XAV10, XAV10. The link is also in the description. Their products are outrageous. Just go on their website, click that link in the description, and actually just check them out and check out what's in the products, and you'll be insanely impressed. So that's it for Xavier Wills and Michael Galley. Make sure if you like this content and you like these videos, give me a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe. That way you won't miss out on any future weekly bodybuilding breakdowns or any videos from Desktop Bodybuilding. So for Xavier Wills and Michael Galley, we are out.